William Sanford Nye, famously known as Bill Nye the Science Guy, is an American mechanical engineer, science communicator, and presenter on television whose most iconic works were from when he hosted the science show called Bill Nye the Science Guy. He's recently been hosting a show on Netflix called Bill Nye Saves the World, along with many other appearances as well. The scientist has recently launched another show about natural disasters and how to avoid them. Let's find out more about it. Starting off, hope is not a plan. Bill was asked about his latest show called The End Is Nye, which recently dropped on Peacock, in which he's selling more than faith to his viewers about the survival of the human race. In a recent interview, he says that hope is not a plan, as the interviewee talks about their views on avoiding issues caused by natural disasters, since Bill believes that a real science-based plan is the only true plan to confront such catastrophes. This is where his show comes in, talking about how through high-quality special effects, they've managed to portray quite a few ways in which the world could end. Now it's up to us if we're actually going to take him and like-minded individuals' advice to finally pave the way for a sustainable human civilization. That's truly an open-ended question, but Bill talks about his faith in humanity and how there are still ways we can work towards it. Moving on, Bill's take on people coping with tragic times. While all this talk about the end of the world would make people extremely nervous, does he just like freaking people out? Actually, it's quite the opposite. Bill and his team, Seth MacFarlane, Brandon Braga, and the writers have actually noticed a phenomenon where people seem to watch more anxiety-inducing content during such times. When things are good, people tend to switch to romantic comedies, but when they aren't, they prefer to watch things relating to their situations. As surprising as it may be, during the pandemic, people would more often watch something like Contagion rather than Friends. What the production brings to the table is the same anxiety-inducing content of a time in our lives that produces an incredible amount of anxiety, though it does have a twist in the latter half of the show. The dual structure of it then shows how the world would be a much better place if we just embrace science instead of making it the enemy, and how we can prepare for all these disasters beforehand with not much of a problem. Upon being asked if there would be an episode around the pandemic, he says that we're still facing that, and if we're going to have a positive end to it or not is yet to be. He continues on to give an example of the Spanish flu, how it took nearly 4 years just to make a vaccine, and how medicine has improved in barely a full century. Coming up, what's the show's objective? Nye urged viewers to be optimistic and to accept scientific ways, that they should watch each episode through scientific processes, identify and come to terms with the fact that we've identified possible disasters and have the means to do something about them. All we need are people who are willing to fight for it. Well then, what's the first step towards a more sustainable world? Bill says that we should start off by going to vote for people who would take a stand for the environment. The upcoming midterm elections could prove to change things a lot. Furthermore, let's take a look at the objective of the show itself and what its mission is. He says that its objective is the same as every show featuring Bill Nye, to change the world, with his first show aiming to get young people interested enough in science to pursue it as a career, trying their best to make the world better for everyone. Though its mission is to create awareness regarding humanity's relationship with the universe so that they can take action against issues that could lead to extinction. Thus, the objective is the same, but the mission itself is a much clear-cut take on it. Let's take a look at it from another perspective. He believes that if we stay on course as shown in the show, there's more than just hope for humanity, and, as Seth has said multiple times during production, conservative media has been extremely successful since they scare people into believing them, and that's also why they have so many viewers. The show aims to do something similar, casting anxiety on people to actually take a step in the right direction. Moreover, how can we fight natural disasters? Currently, we have a very diverse understanding of nature, as in we know where these problems come from and in what way they would be a potential threat. Thus, that leads us to the fact that we can actually do something about them. Humans are the only species, after blue-green algae, that can actually affect the planet's ecosystems. So we should act responsibly and change the world. But how does this translate into real life? Bill continues on to give the example of a comet and how it's a preventable disaster. In fact, the DART mission led by NASA that's coming up soon is a great way to tackle it. It's basically a dual asteroid redirection test, where they're trying to test if they can steer a spacecraft into oncoming comets at 40 kilometers per second into another rock. In case of a volcanic eruption, well, we already have ways to look for possible eruptions, so all we would have to do is get out of its way. Another example of this would be the coronal mass ejection, where the outer layer of the sun, called the corona, shoots off a piece of itself towards us. Though it doesn't hit Earth, its magnetic field interacts with our planets and can turn off all electricity worldwide. In this case, should we all just start screaming and running? Indeed not. We need to work on our electrical infrastructure to always be ready for such a scenario. Something similar happened in Texas a year and a half ago, where one of their independent grids was not robust enough and got cold. He urges people to take steps towards making this a reality, which is in turn his main reason for the end is nigh. Furthermore, are movies instilling fear? When asked this question, Bill replied with an example of watching Independence Day and how we really shouldn't worry about aliens invading us and destroying our planet, since none of it is backed by science, and they would have no reason to do so. The show's 6 disasters are fact and science-based, which in the end produces an anxiety-inducing show and then talks about how easily preventable they are by using real science, told by actual experts and consultants, leaving viewers with not just faith to believe in, but actual empirical data that is real and logical. Though this does raise the question, aren't they just taking part, to some extent, in this same effects and imagery that cause unrealistic panic? Bill then talks about Jeff Oken, the person behind the book, editing the visual effects handbook, and the VFX supervisor, and how having digital effects in the 21st century is absolutely necessary for a disaster movie, especially when what they're making is doing the same thing. But what makes The End Is Nye special is the second half of the show, oozing optimism but with real goals. Finally, Bill's optimism for the future. With the pandemic still not over and rumors of another start, our position with global warming, and not just the news, but politicians on both ends of the spectrum not taking it seriously, but also people just generally being anti-science, and even books getting banned in schools, it's ingrained deep within us at this point. How can we possibly stay optimistic about the future? Bill replies by saying that he simply doesn't think that society is sustainable when lawmakers think like conspiracy theorists, just for their own rhetoric. For example, telling the masses that the earth is flat just to gain certain people's votes. He believes that society will keep on going that way, neither socially nor economically, and people would simply not vote for such people anymore, since their existence is at stake now. Keeping this in mind, he's very optimistic about the future. He believes that young people are going to finally rise up and take over, leaving science deniers to age out and ultimately not exist anymore, leaving the planet in the hands of young people who are actually concerned about the future and environment in charge, making meaningful changes. While he has left a lot of us feeling more confident about the possibility of solutions, he's also told us to keep in mind that at this point, humans are almost fully extinction-proof, at least until the next 4 billion years when the sun turns into a red giant. But currently, humans are the most resilient species to exist. But that's only true if we stop getting in the way of ourselves for temporary gain at the expense of actual people. That's a wrap for this video. Are you looking forward to The End Is Nye? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.